Before we start this video, a large thank you to Mac Marcos, a name I unfortunately cannot pronounce. Thank you for the support, my friend. Taquito, Natron, Matt, Evgeny, Michael, Frank, and Colt for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. And a special thank you to Chen Yemen for their massive support this month to the channel on Patreon. Hello everybody, and today we're going to do guard breaks, and we're also going to refactor the blocking system so it's neater. But first, if you take a look around now, you can see what I'm running. Since we're using an animation layer, it's like my body looks kind of unnatural. Like the top is so static and the bottom's got a little wiggle, and that's okay. But I'm about to release a shield animation pack with Rob, and if you have our straight sword pack, you know that we include blocking locomotion. Just like this. So if you have our sword pack already, you have one-handed and two-handed blocking animations. I'm going to show you how to plug those in an efficient way here now. And if you don't want to do this, you can just skip this part of the video, but this will be out soon as well. As you can see, these are all the locomotion animations. So this is just a blocking set for the shield. I'm only going to plug in the one-handed, and I'm just going to copy and paste it for the two-handed, just so I don't waste too much video time. I'm going to delete this from the upper body, the blocking animations. And then on the base layer, I'm actually just going to go ahead and I'm going to quickly rename all these states so they're neater. There we go. I'm going to right-click on the locomotion one-handed weapon and paste it. So we copy the blend tree and paste it. And then I'm going to rename it from locomotion one-handed weapon to locomotion blocking one-handed weapon. Now, because you can block with one hand or two, and our animation packs usually include both. So I'm going to make a condition. We have to be blocking to go to this state, and we have to not be blocking to return to the regular state. And I'm also going to make a condition for this too, that you have to be one-handing a weapon, so not two-handing it. But let's go to the blend tree first and edit this. So it works just the same as our locomotion, but if you have the animations, you want to replace all of like the walk forward with blocking walk forward, and like the idle would be the shield idle or one-handed idle. And just go down and basically replace all of these, and this will give you 8-way directional locomotion with blocking as well. Like I said before, if you have the straight sword pack on our asset store, we have one-handed and two-handed blocking animations. Every pack we make going forward, we will include that, because Souls has a one-handed and two-handed blocking animation set for each weapon. So you can two-hand block with the shield, or you can one-hand block with the shield. You can two-hand block with a straight sword, or you can one-hand block with a straight sword, etc., etc. So I'm not going to waste the whole video doing this. I'm just going to drag these in. There we go. That's done. And now, if you want to make two-handed, what we're going to do is we're going to right-click and copy this and paste it here, and replace all your one-handed animations with the two-handed blocking versions. And then we want to make a condition the same as before from the regular locomotion state. We want to make sure we're blocking, but let's go back to the one-handed state, and let's also add is two-handing weapon false. You cannot be two-handing your weapon to get to the one-handed blocking animation state. And likewise, over here, we're going to say is blocking equals true, but then we're going to say is two-handing weapon is equal to true. So if you are a two-handing weapon, you go to the two-handed version. And then we'll make a parameter going back, and it will be is blocking is equal to false. And don't forget to onTick has exit time on all of these transition arrows if you want it to be instant and you don't want a delay, which is, I'm sure, what you're after. That's more of the Souls-like. And when that is good to go, we're now done with the animations. And I'm just going to take a sip of my coffee while I open up the blocking action script. Okay, so in here, we can actually just get rid of this. I'm going to comment it out, but you can just delete it if you want to. We don't need to play an animation anymore. I'm also going to go to the left arm and delete the left arm idle animation. Now if you go in the game and I hold the block key, you can see I'm blocking. And when I run around, this looks a whole lot better. This is the actual animation set. I'm just going to give you a little demonstration here now. This is running right, running left. You can see it just looks more natural, so much more natural. There's nothing wrong with using the animation layers, especially if you don't have all the animations yourself. That works just as well. This just looks a bit nicer in my opinion. And again, this pack will be out soon. I will make an announcement. We're still trying to finish and finalize a few things on it. So moving on swiftly, let's go to the player and let's actually delete the blocking collider now, because we're not going to need that. We can also delete the blocking collider script. I'm going to show you how to make blocking using a dot value calculation instead. So I'm going to unpack the prefab and delete the blocking collider, and I'm going to take another sip of coffee. Okay, so I've deleted the blocking collider script as well. I'm just doing that right now. And back over here, you're going to get a few errors. Wherever you find blocking collider, just delete the reference, because that's not going to be needed anymore. You're going to find it in a few places. We have it in here under check for block. We're actually requiring a blocking collider variable. Just get rid of that. And right here where it's asking for a shield, just for now, get rid of that as well. So, and this for now we can leave. I'll come back to that in a second. So let's just not touch this right now. let's go see what other errors we have in the project. Let's remove those. Yeah, so blocking collider, let's delete that too from the player equipment manager. And open and closing blocking collider, they don't need to be in existence anymore. We're not going to open or close any form of collider. The calculation will all be done with math. So I'm going to comment these 2 lines of code out just for now, and this one, and this one. And then we're going to start. Let me just reference my Nephilim material here real quick, just a second. Okay, so yes, we're going to start in this check for block function. Let's just delete that, so we're only asking for an enemy manager. That's all we need for now. And let's just say, let's make a variable up here of type character stats manager if you want. We can just get that from the enemy manager. I'll even just call it enemy shield because that's where we're going to be storing our enemy's absorption values. I'm going to say is equal to enemy manager dot character stats manager. And then we can actually just reference that from here. I'm just going to copy that right now. And we can just say if enemy shield is not equal null. Then we can just replace that there. Okay. All right, so next, let's actually make a vector 3. This is where the actual calculation happens. We're going to say direction from player to enemy. And this is important. Don't mix this up. This needs to be in this order, and you'll see why. So we're going to say vector 3 direction from player to enemy is equal to character manager, as in the character manager on this script, on this damage collider script, which means the character wielding this weapon. So if I scroll up, I'll show you. Right here it says the character manager. This variable is always the character manager who's holding the weapon or owns the weapon of the damage collider. So we'll say character manager dot transform dot position, and then we're going to say minus the enemy manager dot transform dot position. And I'm going to take a sip of coffee. Okay, so now we have the direction from the player to the enemy. Now let's move along, and we're going to say right below that, below the vector 3, I mean, float dot value from player to enemy is equal to, and then we could say vector 3 dot, we pass our direction from player to enemy, and then we say enemy manager dot transform dot forward. Okay, and that's going to give us a value, a decimal value, and we're going to say if enemy manager is blocking and the dot value from player to enemy is greater than 0.3f, then we'll process a block. Now you can change this number. This is very important. I encourage you to go into the console and debug this every time you hit the enemy and see what the value is. But through testing in Nephilim, I found 0.3 is really good, and I'll give a demonstration of it in this video as well to show you where you can be hit and where you cannot be hit. But again, I encourage you to experiment yourself. So we're going to say shield has been hit is equal to true. I'm sure that's there for a flag purpose. I can't recall what it is offhand, but we're going to keep that there for now. And then I'm going to say physical damage after block. That's the same thing. Instead of saying shield, we're actually going to say enemy shield. And right now, we don't have any variables for blocking fire absorption or blocking physical damage absorption. But if you recall, in our armor video, we store our enemy's damage absorptions on the stat manager. So likewise, we're going to store our blocking absorptions on the stat manager. So if you come down here, you see we have armor absorptions. Well, right below that, let's actually make blocking or shield absorptions. And when we are blocking, we're going to pass the values of these absorptions along from our blocking weapon. Okay, so I'm going to start by copying the names exactly here. So let's make a float value here, a public float, and then paste blocking physical damage absorption. And then let's do the same thing for a fire damage absorption. So blocking fire damage absorption. All right, so those values, they're not being adjusted now, so they're just always going to be 0 as it stands right this second, but we'll get to that momentarily. We're going to say we actually don't need to check for this, I don't think. We shouldn't need to check for that at all if enemy shield doesn't equal null. So just paste the code that was in that right here. And again, we're going to want to attempt to block the attack first. Check for guard break, basically. If our enemy doesn't have a stamina, we break guard, and then we pass off the damage after that. We apply damage after the block has been processed. And I'm going to take a sip of coffee again. Okay, so now that that's done, let's go into the game. We're going to get a few more errors because we are pulling apart an old system here. And right on the character combat manager, this is important, put on the character combat manager because everything in the game will most likely be able to block. Well, if you want to give the ability to. Make a public virtual void, call that attempt block, and pass the damage collider for the attacking weapon, or, you know, in some cases spell or whatever you want. And then pass a float for physical damage, and then a float for fire damage, and a float for whatever the kinds of damage you have. I'm only doing physical and fire because those are the two damage types I made when I was giving you an example. And pass a string for your blocking animation if you'd like. So you can change the animation if the attack is heavier or weaker or whatever in the future. So let's make a pseudo code list here. Deduct stamina from blocking attack. That's what I want to do first. And if we obviously have 0 stamina, we want to do a guard break. But let's get back to check for block here first. And let's just say enemy manager dot enemy combat manager, or it will be character combat manager, dot attempt block. So we call that right here. We pass this, as in this damage collider. And we pass our physical damage after block, and our fire damage after block. And then we're going to say block 01, which will just be my blocking animation. And we can make a function in the future to change that depending on how hard the attack is. And then we're just going to say enemy.take damage. And we actually want a specific take damage for blocking only. Because right now this one actually does something down here. I'll show you why. It's very silly. We actually play a random damage sound effect in this one. But for blocking, we want to play a random blocking sound effect depending on what kind of shield it is or what kind of blocking object, metal or wood, etc. But we don't have that sound right now. So I'm just going to have the function called take damage after block. And I'm going to delete the sound effect down here and put a comment, say play blocking noise for the future. But this is the only reason I'm using a different function. If you want, you can use the same function and just make a variable for the sound file. I'm going to do it this way. So I'm going to say take damage after block. There we go. And then we want to come back here and get rid of the blocking collider on the damage collider. We don't need that anymore. And also get rid of the blocking collider there. Wherever you get an error and you see a blocking collider, just be sure to erase it, because apparently we've missed a few. Yeah, and open blocking collider, don't need that anymore, erase that. And let's just erase this line of code because we don't need that. So all we have on the blocking action now is a bool turning our blocking to true. That's good. Delete the blocking collider there. That's good as well. And there we go. And if the blocking collider is enabled, we can just delete all of this right now. So all we have to say is if player is blocking, then his blocking is equal to false. And we can delete that. If you guys haven't caught on yet too, you can also use the same logic for riposte and backstab, so you don't need a collider. I've done that for Nephilim as well. I won't get into that because this video illustrates the purpose. Oh, let's get rid of the enemy stats here too. That's all we need is enemy manager. So if you know how to do this for blocking, basically what I'm trying to say is you know how to do it for parrying and backstabbing. You won't need the colliders then either if you don't want to. But the colliders are fine. They're a great way to go about it as well. This is just a different way to go about it. So I'm going to make a new script called Enemy Combat Manager because we don't have one of those yet. I'm going to make it derived from Character Combat Manager. I'm going to place that on all of my enemies. I'm doing this so in the future when we give the AI the ability to block, basically they can use the functions from the Character Combat Manager much like the player can, which will allow them to be guard broken, etc., etc. Okay, so I'm going to go to my enemy and add on the Enemy Combat Manager. This is my block dummy I've set up just for the video. All he does is just, he's in a perpetual state of blocking. That's it. So if I go into the game here now, he's got an invisible shield. Okay, I'm hitting him and nothing is happening. So if I hit him from the side, though, there you go. He takes damage. So it is working, but for some reason he's not playing the block animation. So let's go follow the code. Take damage after block. Okay, at no point in here am I playing an animation. Even though let's get rid of that string for damage animation. I'm not supposed to play the animation here though, so I'm going to save that. So there's no animation played there. I'm supposed to play this animation. Let's just delete that. Okay, so attempt block is where I should be playing the animation. Let's change that 0 to fire damage after block, if you have that there. Again, putting your own damage types. I'm just going off what I have. Oh, I have to round that to an int. All right, so the enemy manager.combatmanager.attempt block is where I should be playing this animation, and yes, I see. Okay, so there's no code here for actually playing animation. So let's fill this out. We forgot to come back to this. That's my bad. I'm going to start by declaring a variable of type character manager. I'm going to call it character. On awake, I'm going to simply say character equals get component character manager because the character manager will always sit on the same game object as the character combat manager. I am then going to play the animation, but first I'm going to check for a few things. So I'm going to say if character.character's stat manager.current stamina is equal to or less than or equal to 0, Then we want to play a guard break. We don't want to play a normal block animation, so I'm just going to say guard break. And down here, I'm going to say else. We're going to play our regular blocking animation. So we would just say character, and then we'd reference our character's animator manager. So it will be .character animator manager, .play target animation, and we would play the string of the block animation, and then we want to make sure we are interacting so the character is locked into this animation. Okay. Now, that should work, I believe. I can't see why it wouldn't unless you're missing something else, but we will see in a sec, so let's save that. Alright, I'm in the game here now, so if I attack this gentleman, you will see that he will play a blocking animation. And if I approach him from the sides, but I'm still kind of in front of him, you can see he is still blocking. If I'm on like a 45 here, he's still blocking. But if I get right to his side, he will play a damage animation, and a block is not processed. So you can do the same from the other side and the back. And there you go, guys. That's a much more efficient blocking system. There's no colliders needed, just all done with some math. Next, I'm going to go to the weapon item, and we actually need to give the damage absorption some values. And first, I'm going to add a fire damage absorption here, because I have a physical damage absorption, and I didn't put a fire one here, just for the demonstration's sake. And again, add whatever damage types you have in your game. And we're actually going to... I'm going to rename this first to make it more clear what it is. I'm going to say physical blocking damage absorption and fire blocking damage absorption. Now, we need to basically assign these values to the stat manager when the character is blocking, because right now they're never assigned. I'm also going to make another header for stability, which is going to determine how much stamina is lost when you try to block an attack. So I'm going to say public int stability. And think of this in terms of 1 to 100%. And I'll say the default is 67, so just like 2/3. So if you're 100% stability, you're barely going to lose any stamina. If you're 1 stability, you're going to lose a whole lot of stamina. So let's say public float guard break modifier is equal to, I'm just going to say 1. And this is going to be a multiplier of how much stamina you will drain with your attacks from a person who is blocking. So how much stamina they will lose when they're trying to block an attack. The higher that multiplier, the more stamina the character will lose while blocking an attack. So let's make a float. And this is under the character combat manager, under a temp block. I'm going to call this stamina damage absorption. So this is how much stamina the shield will absorb and how much the character won't lose. So we're going to say this is equal to physical damage plus fire damage. And again, add all your damage types here. And then we're going to say, let me just get my notes out here. I have a formula for this. Times attacking weapon dot, what did I call that again? Guard break multiplier, I want to say. Just a moment. I have to go back and see what I named that. Whoops, weapon item is supposed to be where it is. Okay, yeah, right. I didn't assign this to the damage colliders, so let's do that. I'm going to copy the guard break modifier here and assign that to the damage collider as well. Much like assigning damage to a damage collider from the weapon, we also need to assign the guard break multiplier. So I'm just going to put that down here. So wherever you're assigning damage, also assign your guard break modifier. And I will get to that in a moment. So I'm going to say guard break modifier. And again, wherever you're assigning damage in your weapon, just assign that in the same place. So then we're going to say attacking weapon dot guard break modifier. And then we're going to multiply that by our character stats manager. Just need to check on this over here. And we're going to multiply that by, let's make a public int here for shield stability, which is again going to be the stability of the weapon we're blocking with. I'm actually going to name that blocking stability rating because it might not always be a shield. It could be blocking with a weapon too. So we're going to say times character stats manager dot blocking stability rating divided by 100. And again, this is my formula. You can change this as you want. I'm just giving you the one that I use in Nephilim and one that I believe is very similar to Souls. So I'm going to say float stamina damage is equal to, then we're going to open some brackets here and say physical damage plus fire damage times attacking weapon dot guard break modifier. And it's the same thing as before up there, but we're going to minus the absorption from the total. So our stamina damage, our final damage, is equal to physical damage plus fire damage times our attack weapons modifier minus what we absorbed. Then we're going to say character stats manager dot current stamina is equal to the current stamina already minus our stamina damage. And that is how we're going to deduct stamina. Then you will see basically that if our stamina is at 0 after this, we're going to play a guard break. And if our stamina is above 0, we're just going to play our blocking animation. So guard break for me, I'm just going to use the same animation I use if a character gets parried. I'm just going to copy it though and paste it and just give it a new name. You can call it guard break 01 or whatever you want to call it. But this will allow the character who's guard broken to also be riposted. So I have the parried animation here. I just copied and pasted it. I called it guard break 01. I suggest you do the same if you have it. If not, use whatever animation you want just to show the player or the person attacking that the enemy has been guard broken. The longer the animation, the better, because it kind of punishes the character more for allowing their stamina to get to 0. You want something that will allow the target to be hit afterwards that makes them vulnerable. I'm then going to say character.isBlocking is equal to false, because if you're less than or equal to 0 stamina, you don't want to be able to block again. And I'm going to save that. Okay, right up here at the top, let's say public virtual void set blocking absorptions from blocking weapon. And this will be very straightforward. We just need to basically take the values from the blocking weapon itself and assign them to our character stats manager. So we're going to say if character dot is using right hand, and then we want to take the right-handed blocking stats. Else if we're using the left hand, we take the left-handed blocking stats, which is probably most of the people in this project. You're always going to be using left hand. In my project, I have blocking enabled with the right hand too for some items, but you're going to most of the time be using the left hand. So under this, under if character dot is using right hand, we're going to say character dot character stats manager dot blocking physical damage absorption, that's supposed to be an equals, not a minus, is equal to character dot character inventory manager dot right weapon, remember because this is if we're using the right hand, dot physical blocking damage absorption. And then copy and paste that again, but change physical to fire on both sides and do this for all your damage types. And then right below all that, at the very last, let's set our stability by saying character dot character stats manager dot blocking stability. We're going to say is equal to character dot character inventory manager again dot right weapon dot stability. I believe we just called it stability. Yes. Now do the same thing and copy and paste all these variables, put them in the left hand section, and just replace right weapon with left weapon. It's just the variable on the right end of the code here, and then you are good to go. So we still have to call this function, which we're going to do on our blocking action script. And I will show you where we're going to put that. So minimize that. It'll be a bit different for AI in the future, but for the player, this is how it's going to be. Double click blocking action. And we're right below where it says if player is blocking return, because we don't want to set this over and over again. We're simply going to say player combat manager dot set blocking absorptions from blocking weapon. And that's it. So let's save that. And if I were to go into the game now, I can actually show you in a second. So first I'm going to actually give the shield some absorptions. I said it's a 99 and just a random numbers really. And just go in here now, and if I actually block with the shield, watch the values change. Oh, we have an error, never mind. So this error is leading us over here. Oh, I know why we have an error. We have to set this to a protected virtual void. And then we have to go to the player combat manager and override it and still call the base awake because we weren't getting the character variable. So come to the player combat manager, override the awake, and call base awake and just say player equals component player manager. Now if we go in the game and I block, you can see the blocking absorption values. They change as soon as my shield goes up. So you actually get the absorption assigned to you when you block as intended. And if you were to attack a target, and their stamina was to reach 0, you would guard break them. Now, I want to get your guys' opinion on something. I'm going to go over the AI and do a polish episode real soon and give them the ability to block, to roll, to parry, to riposte. I don't know if you guys see my Nephilim devlog, but I can add all that fun stuff. But I want your opinion in the comments below. So anybody who's on this episode, because this is mostly for the people of Cotton Up, I have the prototype and functionality done for a saving system to support up to 10 profiles as it is in Souls. I finished it just a couple days ago for this project. It's been done on Nephilim for a while now. So we can do one of two things right now. We can go and revisit the AI and rework them a little bit and give them all these new abilities like dodging and riposting and blocking, etc., etc. And then we can test out all of our combat and give it a little bit of a polish and really go through it and make sure it's all nice and fluid. Or before we do that, if you want to, we can begin and go through the saving system where we save all items in the world, the character's stats, what armor you're wearing, the location, etc., etc. So whoever's on this point of the video, if you want to comment down your input below, based on the responses I get from here in Discord, I will decide which route we take. The saving system will probably take between 3 and 5 episodes. The AI probably 1 to 2, and then I want to do a polish episode on some of the combat, and we'll keep coming back and polishing things as we need to. I estimate the last 10 episodes of the series will just all be polished and making the game feel really nice. So if you made it this far, please be sure to drop a like because it really does help out my series so much. Leave a comment to appease the YouTube algorithm gods. A large thank you to my patrons. It is genuinely because of all of you guys I get to keep doing this, and I appreciate you all so much. I will see you in the next episode, and that is yet to be determined. So let me know what you think in the comments below.